Welcome to Question It, the podcast where we rethink health, wellness, and personal growth. I'm Kevin, your host, chief inquisitor, and sometimes guinea pig, exploring fresh paths to a better life. Let's dive into today's episode and get started. Welcome back to Question It. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing a really big topic. Now, it's going to seem pretty simple and basic, but it's actually huge. I mean, gigantic. If you have ever struggled in any way in your life, if you've ever felt overwhelmed or lost or just uncertain, you felt like something was off, especially if you've ever struggled where you couldn't even get out of bed on a given day, or you just had no motivation to do anything at all, then this episode is for you. It's also an episode for you if you're looking to improve some aspect of your life, if you want to level up in life in whatever way that is for you. Again, this episode is for you because today we are going to be talking about your absolute most basic human needs. Now, I know there are a lot of different models out there for basic needs and what's the purpose of life, which I'm actually going to discuss in another episode. But what I'm talking about today is really whittling life down to your most absolute basic needs. And if you're struggling in any way, and I've been there myself, if you're struggling somehow, then what I recommend is to focus on the most basic elements first. What I like to do whenever I'm running through a challenge or even on a new project or something, I found it to be really helpful to start with the basics, basic building blocks, and then go from there. And I think that so often people are struggling in their day-to-day lives because their most basic fundamental needs are not being met. So I'm going to give them to you, and we're going to talk about them, I think, in a little bit of detail, and let's just see where this episode goes, okay? So the first most basic need is a physical need, and there are 5. So the first most basic need is air. Okay? We have to start with breathing because if you can only go about 3 minutes without air. That's the rule of thumb. 3 minutes without air and you're dead. Nothing else matters. Okay? That is the most basic thing that I can think of anyway that a human needs. Again, I know that there are all kinds of models out there for meaning and purpose and self-actualization and enlightenment and serving others and serving some higher power. None of that matters if you're dead, okay? And I hope that's not a trigger warning for people, or you need a trigger warning for that, but we need to breathe. And when I'm talking about breathing, if day-to-day challenges are a struggle, it's okay to take time and just breathe. Even just listen to your breath for 1 breath. Start there. 2 breaths, 5 breaths. I'm not talking about meditation. I'm not talking about deep contemplation. Just listening to yourself breathe. Start there and get into a really good practice of breathing and filling your body with oxygen. There's a lot of different videos out there and techniques around breathing, but just start with breathing. Make sure you're getting air on a very regular basis, okay? So that's the rule of thumb, 3 minutes without air. And just remember, if your airway is cut off, you will do anything imaginable to get air back. When that basic need is not being met, it's extremely uncomfortable. I would even go so far as to say painful. Another word for discomfort is pain. And a human will do anything to avoid pain. So we will scrape and scramble and everything to get that airway open again. Okay? So first start with breathing. The next most important basic need is shelter. The rule of thumb is we can survive as humans 3 hours without shelter. That would be like in a snowstorm or a hurricane or, some extreme heat, something like that. But we'll do anything to cool ourselves off or warm ourselves up, like shiver, because being outside of our normal comfort zone and being pelted by the elements is extremely uncomfortable, even painful. So first there's air, then there is shelter. And we need to focus on having good shelter and being protected from the elements. So focus on that. The third most basic need is sleep. The rule of thumb, I would say, is about 24 hours. And if you go 24 hours without sleeping, you're going to be hallucinating. You won't even be able to see straight or focus, and you'll be, all kinds of different things will be coming up into your mind, and you'll see things because our human body needs sleep in order to operate. So I would say make sure you're prioritizing sleep in your day-to-day life. And something that you can try, and I've read this and I've tried this and it works pretty well, is to focus on the time that you wake up. Make that a very consistent time to wake up each day, because you'll naturally find a time to fall asleep. But if you're consistent with your wake up time, then your body will let you know when it's time to go to sleep at night. Okay, so really prioritize sleep, whatever that means for you, however much sleep that you need. I mean, I know a lot of people say they can run on 4, 5, and 6 hours, but is that really optimal sleep? Are they really functioning at their best? Are you? So really try to prioritize sleep. And if you can get an extra 30 minutes or an extra hour, whatever you need, if you can get that rest and rejuvenate yourself overnight, then I think that's going to really contribute to your overall well-being. So the fourth most basic need is water. Now, I've made videos about water before, and I'm a big fan of hydration. And I would actually argue that most people, especially the elderly, are chronically dehydrated, and that messes up all different kinds of systems. I'm not talking about elite athletes or anything. I'm just talking about day-to-day life and how vital water is for our human body. So prioritize getting enough water in your day-to-day life. And I would recommend, my rule of thumb as an athlete is 2/3 of your body weight measured in pounds in ounces of water per day. And this doesn't count what you drink during your exercise if you happen to exercise in a day. So if you weigh 100 pounds, then you should be drinking 66 ounces of water per day. Start with less than that because you don't want to just ramp right up to the optimal level, but work yourself up, maybe 50%, maybe 40%, and really try to prioritize hydration. And we know, again, the rule of thumb is we can go 3 days without water and then we are in a world of hurt, but we're already becoming dehydrated in 12 hours or more, and depending on the weather and elements and things like that. So really try to prioritize water. I've even found that really hydrating well, up to that 66% of your total body weight in pounds, in ounces of water per day, I have found that to be more energizing even than caffeine or sugar, but I really try to stay away from sugar. Prioritizing your water and making sure that that is something that you're doing every single day. And the fifth most basic human need is food. Now, I know we can fast 24 hours, 48, 72, even 3 weeks without food. But do your best, especially if you're struggling, to prioritize eating really good food for you. I know everyone has different kinds of diets and things like that. So I would just give general guidelines: no sugar, no alcohol, try to eat whole foods, whether that's fruits and vegetables or lean meats. Not even lean meats, but fatty meats are fine too. Whatever works for you, but try to keep it as clean as possible without all the preservatives and additives and anything else that your body's going to have to deal with. Okay, so quick review of the 5 physical needs in order of importance are air, shelter, sleep, water, and food. Okay, and then the 2 other little bonus needs are urinating and defecating. So we need to pee and poop on a regular basis, because if we're getting backed up in our GI system, that's going to cause all kinds of problems as well. So those are the 5 basic physical needs. And then there's the 1 basic emotional need, that I think is the global epidemic. And that one emotional need that we have to be nurturing on a day-to-day basis, or things really get out of control for ourselves, is our need for love, connection, and belonging. And when I say, rather than saying that whole string, love, connection, and belonging, I'm just going to say love, but I'm not talking about romantic love. I'm talking about familial love, family love, friendship love, coworker love, classmate love, love for your fellow human being, your neighbor, your countrymen, your planet full of people. And if we can really nurture our relationships, the giving and receiving of this love, then life is going to get so much better. I actually believe that most of our stress, not all, but most of our stress in life is actually coming from our poor relationships. Somewhere somebody has wronged you, you don't feel valued, you don't feel heard, you don't feel understood. Oftentimes, this happens and gets ingrained in our subconscious before we're even 6 years old. We start to learn just by how our parents are raising us, trying to keep us alive with those 5 physical needs, but we're too often neglecting the emotional needs. Now, I know that parents unconditionally love their children. I believe that in my heart. I really believe that. But just because they feel it doesn't mean that that's the message that's being received by their children. And once we start to learn not to receive love, or we don't learn what healthy love really feels like, it hurts. It causes pain. And a person, again, will do anything to ease their pain. And when we don't feel that sense of love and connection and belonging in our own family, that's when we start acting out. That's when we start turning to all manner of other behaviors in an attempt to ease our pain. It's not that we're just looking for pleasure-seeking activities to feel good. I believe that we're actually trying to seek these pleasure activities in order to ease our pain of not feeling that love and connection and belonging that we really need as human beings. In fact, it's so important to have this love and connection and belonging. This is literally how we humans have gotten to where we are today. Homo sapiens have been on this planet for 200,000 years. And the reason we've gotten this far is because we've worked together as a collective, as a tribe, as a village, right? It takes a village. It's so much easier to hunt for food when we work together rather than trying to hunt alone. It's so much easier to create crops and grow crops as a group than it is on our own. It's easier to build our shelter as a team, as a group, than it is on our own. If we don't nurture this basic human need for love and connection and belonging, then we experience pain. And again, a human will do anything to ease their pain. So in the absence of knowing how to really love and connect, right? Knowing how to talk to someone, knowing how to communicate, but it's more than just communication. It's a real connection. It's feeling heard, feeling understood, feeling valued by the other person, and reciprocating that feeling. That is when we're really nurturing our emotional health. And when our emotional health is nurtured, then our behaviors dramatically improve because we no longer have to lean on behaviors to ease our pain. We don't have the pain, so then we can go out and we can do all the other things that we want to do in life, the things that give us meaning, the things that give us purpose, the things that help us self-actualize and reach enlightenment, whatever that happens to mean. So if you can focus on these 5 physical and 1 emotional needs, really hone in on nurturing your relationships, really work on having regular interaction. I'm not just talking about checking in on someone or having a beer with someone. I'm talking about really connecting and listening and understanding and acknowledging and validating each other, because then we will feel loved. Okay. And another element of this is to reconcile some of these relationships that might not have been so good in the past. I've talked about this before, but sometimes these relationships, like with our parents growing up, who we never felt like they heard us or understood us or listened or were proud of us, we need to reconcile those relationships. And that's one reason why I created the Uchi app, which really helps people share their perspective and hear the perspective of the people who are closest to them, who matter most to them. And Uchi, which is spelled UCHI, is a free social platform that anyone can use to connect with the people closest to you. Uchi is also a tool that you can use in schools or in workplaces, even in families, where you can come up with questions, but we'll get into that on the Uchi Connection channel. But for what I want to talk about today is nurturing your most basic needs, because when we have a foundation, that's when our life is really going to start to get better, because we're nurturing what we need most. Now, the last thing that I'll say about needs is I think there's one more that is sort of a bonus kind of need. And I'm going to say that is to, if you can do this, if you can find a purpose or more than one purpose in life, something that really matters to you at your core, this is what's going to help you get out of bed each day. So if you're really struggling or you want to really level up in life, find something that matters to you. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be vacuuming your house and having really clean carpet. It could be volunteering somewhere. It could be exercise. It could be the work that you do to earn a living. Whatever that is, whatever matters to you at your core, not just doing it to do it, but something that really matters to you. It could be art. It could be music. It could be watching movies. I don't really care. It doesn't really matter as long as it matters to you. And if you can nurture your purpose or purposes in life, then I think that's also going to help you get out of bed each day. It gives you a reason to get out of bed. Okay. And if you're really struggling or you want to level up, this is really important. And I believe that when we nurture our purpose, what matters to us at our essence, our core, our soul, our spirit, then we're nurturing our spiritual health, which is another element of our overall well-being. Now, I know people are going to start to think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the pyramid, but actually Maslow didn't come up with the pyramid. It was another psychologist who came up with the pyramid idea for an article for some other company. But in Maslow's original theory of human motivation from 1943, he actually says that the basic needs or the motivating needs are not a strict hierarchy. He says that in his paper. We can be working on any of our most basic core elements at any given time. And I think a really good example is when we see, like in the movies or TV, when we see someone who has, let's say they've just been dumped by their girlfriend, and now this guy is waiting outside their girlfriend's apartment in the cold, in the rain, at night, skipping meals, not sleeping. They're willing to forego their physical needs because their emotional need is so distraught. That's how powerful the need for love and connection and belonging truly is. So if you can work on those 5 physical and 1 emotional, your most basic needs, then I think your life will really start to improve, or at least you'll start to be moving in the right direction. Now, I know some people believe that social needs and financial needs are other needs. Again, social is included in the love and connection. So that's an emotional need, actually. We feel connected. We feel love. We don't think love. If people think that financial need is a most basic need, well, it's just not. That's incorrect, because humans invented money. Humans did not invent the need for air or food or shelter or love. Love is part of our biology, right? That is the hormone oxytocin is released through our body when we feel and give and receive love with another person. So financial needs, money is not a basic need. Money, we made it a basic need because now the only way to really get food and shelter and sometimes water is by using money. Okay. But actually, I think that if a government really wanted to support the citizens, then maybe food and shelter should be given to its citizens. Now, I'm not talking about some socialism or communism or whatever. It could even be something as simple as universal basic income, which has been proven in many, many different studies to be effective. If there was just a basic stipend, a basic income that every citizen, every adult citizen in the country got to pay for their food, to pay for their shelter, then that would reduce the struggle to meet those physical needs. And once the physical needs are off the table and no longer a struggle, then it opens the door to really cultivate and nurture the emotional need because you're not so stressed about just getting food on the table and a roof over your head. When those basic needs are being threatened, especially on a day-to-day basis, nothing else matters because we're talking about your physical existence. So we have to meet the physical, but the emotional does factor in integrally. Is that right? Is that really the right word? It really integrates in. It works together. But focus on those 6 fundamental, most basic needs, and I think your life will really start to improve, or at least you'll have a foundation to where you can start to seek out the other areas of your life to live the life that you want to live. Okay? So, that was a mouthful. I hope it was fun for you. And I hope you'll join the free uchiTribe to engage with me and other listeners by answering some questions. That's how we get the conversation started. That's how we get connection started, by simply answering questions, sharing our perspective. And again, only the people in our uchiTribe can read and access our answers, and we can have some deeper conversation and dialogue and begin to connect around this topic of basic human needs and living your best life. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Question It. Remember, growth happens outside your comfort zone, so keep experimenting with life and embracing change. If you enjoyed this episode, please connect with me in the show notes, leave a 5-star review on the platform of your choice, and please join this episode's uchiTribe to dig into deeper conversation with me and fellow listeners. Until next time, peace, love, and connect.